Hey guys, welcome to Home Sweet Homeschool. My name is Ashley and I'm a homeschooling mom to one. And in today's video, I'm going to show you a side-by-side comparison of the Good and the Beautiful Space Unit and Gather Round Homeschool Space Unit. Now the reason why I'm doing this is I had someone comment that they would love to see these two side by side. So I love to do request videos, and so Colleen from Our Blessed Life said that she would like to see these side by side to see what they had to offer, and so I was like, awesome, I'll do it because I've done both of them. The first thing I want to say is if you're looking for me to bash curriculum, this is not the video for that. I'm not going to be bashing any curriculum because I love them both. I've done both of them. I think they're both totally solid curriculums, and I'm not going to bash anything. I'm simply just going to tell you what they are, and I'm going to show you a side-by-side comparison. So first we're going to talk about what they are. Now, it's not really comparing apples to apples because the Good and the Beautiful Space Unit is strictly a science unit. The Gather Round Homeschool Space Unit is all of your subjects except for math. So even though it's science-based and it's space, you get to hit all of your subjects. So I'm not really comparing apples to apples, but I do want to show you what they look like and what they have to offer and kind of talk about price differences and things like that. So the Good and the Beautifuls is called Space Science. You can go and check out on their website. The Good and the Beautiful has a ton of science units, and this was space. We actually did this one last year, and we really enjoyed it. Now, I always do the PDF print at home, but you can have this printed and mailed to you, and then you will have to have it bound. It just comes like wrapped up in a sealed package, and you can have it bound. You can see that if you watch Grace and Grit, which I'm sure you do, and if you don't, you need to. And she does a lot of the science units, and you can kind of see what they look like when she gets them. But here's the thing. To get this one printed and sent to you is $23.99, so it is just a science unit. To print it off at home, it cost me $15. So I got the download, I printed it at home, and we used it just like that, okay? So in here, in this unit, you're going to find your science stuff. So it's a science curriculum. I did notice that as we did it, it had some art in it, and it had some experiments. So you do get that kind of stuff. The art's just kind of a little added bonus, and then you have science experiments. It's a good unit to do if you don't want to do a lot of prep. So if you're trying to pick out a unit from the Good and the Beautiful and you don't want a lot of preparation, then you may want to try the space unit because there's not a lot of prep and not a lot of extra things you need to go and find and do to complete it. So we really like this. And I'm going to show you in a minute. I only printed off a little bit of it. I actually have the whole thing printed that's in my basement, but I didn't want to go to my basement today. So I just printed off the table of contents and the first two lessons so I could show you what it looks like in comparison to Gather Round Homeschool. So one of the things I do like about the space unit from the Good and the Beautiful is it does come with vocabulary cards. And so you'll have your vocabulary words and you can hang them up like on a science wall or things like that. It has that, and it also comes with mini books that you can print off and read to your kiddos. So if you are looking for books to go along with the lessons, they include some of the mini books in there. So one of the things we did for my son was I just kept a notebook beside us when we did it, and this is where he put his vocabulary words. So we would talk about the word and the definition, and then I always got him to illustrate the word. I feel like that helps you learn vocabulary better. So we just kept the notebook with us, and that's what we would do to learn our vocabulary. This was part of the first lesson, the Milky Way facts, and you cut this out and you talk about the different facts. And then we did like orbit and diameter, and then he has it on that side where he drew a picture of it. So we just kept this. You could have a science wall, you know, a bulletin board, whatever. You could do that and keep the vocabulary words there. So like I said, it is strictly just a science unit. You're getting a space science unit with experiments in it, and it will tell you things to go watch, things you might can read, and all that. And I'll show you that because I'm going to flip the camera in a minute, and I'm going to show you like a side-by-side of what they look like. Now, so that was space science. Also, a thing to know is that they're both faith-based, so if that's something you're looking for, they both are faith-based. If that's something you're not looking for, you may want to try out a sample and look through it before you buy it. Now, this is Gather Round Homeschool. This is created by Rebecca Spooner from Homeschool On. This is new. Gather Round's been around for a little bit. This is new. It just started in September. Her space unit was the second one I think that she released. Maybe, let me think. Nope, third. It was North American birds, Asia, and then space. And so we picked this up, and we just finished it about the end of, or middle of January, we finished this one. And so Gather Round Homeschool, if you do not know, is a curriculum that is meant for you to gather your family around from preschool all the way to high school and teach them at the same time. So this comes with a teacher's guide, and then your children will have a notebook. So I have one son, he's in upper elementary, so this is his notebook. So when you go to purchase this and you buy this unit, you're going to buy a teacher's guide, and then you're going to buy the units the notebooks that your kiddos need. So with Gather Around, you can buy the bundle where all the notebooks come together, and then you can kind of look through it and decide what your kiddo needs. Or if you're like me and you only have one, then you just find the notebook he needs and you buy the one student, one teacher guide like that. So the one student, one teacher guide of this is $19.95 on Gather Round Homeschool. So this has 20 lessons, and it lasted us for over a month, and it includes every single subject except for math. I'm going to say that again. Every single subject except for math. That's why I said you're not comparing apples to apples. This is a unit study. It includes everything. Yes, it is space. The theme is space. But she does such a great job at tying in the space theme to all of the subjects. And that is where kiddos make connections, and that's where your learning happens. And again, you're hitting all your subjects. Now, this one, Good and the Beautiful, is made for kindergarten through 6th grade. So it's not really recommended for high school. And I have seen some people say, I don't think this is enough for high school, but that's where you add in extra. That's where you find the labs and you find the extra stuff that you need for your kiddos in high school. This one just says it's about K through 6th grade. So you've got one that's Gather Round is for all of your kiddos, and then you've got the Good and the Beautiful that's up to 6th grade. So again, I told you how much it costs for Gather Round. If you buy the digital bundle, and I'm looking at my notes, if you buy the digital bundle of space, which means you have multiple kiddos or you want all the different levels, it's $49.95. You can buy the digital download and print them at home, or you can pay a little extra and she can print them for you. So it does cost a little more for her to print it and ship it to you, but you could just open the box and start. She'd have it all ready for you. So you are going to get a teacher's guide with this, with Gather Round Homeschool. With the Good and the Beautiful, there isn't a teacher's guide, but if you look at the lesson, and I'll show you in just a minute a better view of it, the lesson will tell you, like it says, read to the children. And it tells you exactly what to read, exactly what to say, and exactly what to ask. So it does have that. So the lesson and the part you're reading is built into it, whereas with Gather Round Homeschool, there is a separate teacher's guide. And so I printed off a little bit of it, but I actually used the teacher's guide on my iPad. I downloaded it on Google Drive, and I use it on my iPad. And you can do it that way, or you can print it out either way. Both of these units do include timeline cards. I noticed that was the same. I looked at both of those. They both include timeline cards. The Gather Round Homeschool actually has flashcards at the back of the teacher's guide. She does for most of the levels. And also the Gather Round Homeschool is going to have like a reading log and things like that that you're not going to find in a science unit. So they are totally different. Yes, they're both about space, and they both include a lot of the same concepts. I'm going to show you that by showing you the table of contents, but they're not in the same category, only because one is strictly a science unit and the other is an all-encompassing, all your subjects except for math unit study. So that is the biggest difference between the two. So now I'm going to turn it around and show you what it looks like and kind of give you an idea of how they're different. Okay, here they are side by side. So we have the Gather Round Homeschool space on this side, and on the other side we have the Good and the Beautiful space, Science, the Wonders of the Universe. So what I wanted to show you was the table of contents of both of them. So this one has 20 lessons, this one has 16 lessons, and both of them start, well, this is an introduction to space, and then you have an introduction to astronomy. So you're covering a lot of the same things. This is broken up more into the sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, the moon, Mars. You go through all the planets. And then there's some other things like stars and rockets and gravity. And if you notice on this side, you're hitting the same thing, the solar system and the sun. Then you're doing Mercury and Venus, Earth and Mars. And so they're kind of doing the same thing, just this one looks more like it's combining the lessons instead of separating it like this. So you're still doing the history of astronomy. You're still learning about Galileo, which I remember doing in this one. And then it talks about space exploration and constellations. And so you have history of space exploration and constellations here as well. So you're going to be covering about the same type of scientific things, but you also have to keep in mind this one, the Gather Round Homeschool, is going to include all of your subjects. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that in just a second. So this just is the table of contents for both of them. Then what you're going to notice in Gather Round, it's going to have a scope and sequence, and it's going to tell you all the things that you're covered in the unit. So if you have any doubt about what's being covered, check out the scope and sequence. So you can see the language arts, the writing, the grammar, the spelling, all the science that you're covering. And it even has one more page that has your social studies and history. So social studies, geography, history, art, and Bible. So that's everything that this one unit is going to cover for you. So the scope and sequence is included in that. Then what you're going to find in this one, this says space science. It talks all about having a science journal, a science wall, lesson mini books, lesson preparation, what to do if you're teaching older children, and then different versions. So that's what you're going to see in the Good and the Beautiful. Now, I want to show you, that's kind of like an overview of the unit. And then I wanted to show you what this one has. So again, this is the student notebook, and this is the teacher's guide. So she has this little letter in the beginning of most of hers. She writes a letter to the teacher, what you should know about the unit, and how to use the book list. So in the teacher's guide that you get, there will be a book list, and I didn't print every page, but I wanted to print you one so you could see what it looked like. There is a book list at the beginning of each of the units, and she does have it separated from like pre-reader, early reader, upper elementary, all her different levels, middle school, high school. She has a book list and also has a list of things you may want to watch. And so you can go and check these out at the library or see if you already have them. And these are just optional, just to give you some ideas if you need to know where to start. So that's going to be in your teacher's guide of Gather Round. Something they both include, which I absolutely love and appreciate when a curriculum goes so far as to give you a breakdown of the supplies that you need. And so even though it's a different format, you can see the supplies for each lesson, and the Good and the Beautiful does the same thing. And it'll tell you, hey, this lesson doesn't require any, it's just open and go. Or if you have some things that you need to find. And I've noticed about both of them, they're both pretty simple with their supply list. It's usually things that you already have at home or that you could go and purchase easily. So those are included in both of the units. You have a supplies needed. So now let's get into what they look like. So, oh, and there's notes about this unit. I forgot to show this one. So this one also has a note to the teacher. So field trip ideas, worldview, read aloud recommendations. So there are some book recommendations and some videos. And so the lessons, when you get into the lessons, they will kind of have a thing that you may want to watch or you may want to read. It will show you that. So like I said before, the Good and the Beautiful comes with vocabulary cards. So if you have a space in your schoolroom or somewhere that you could hang up vocabulary cards, you could totally cut these out and it will tell you in the lesson which vocabulary cards you need. And then you can either hang them on the wall or, like we used a notebook, a way to kind of just learn the vocabulary words. These are provided with this science unit from the Good and the Beautiful. And there's a ton of them. I didn't print them all out to show you, but there's a bunch of them in there. All right, so we're going to get to the first lesson. Now, both of them, lesson 1, start with an introduction to space. Both of them do. We're going to look at how different they look and how they compare. So this is the teacher's guide for Gather Round Homeschool. It's going to tell you your day at a glance. So on lesson 1 in this day, you're going to get science, social studies and language arts, Bible and language arts, geography, and art. You're covering all those things in that one lesson. Over here, you're going to be doing science. So that means you're going to have other stuff for the rest of the day, which is totally fine if you're using this just for a science curriculum. So they're similar in the fact that they do have a script of what you need to read. Good and the Beautiful says, read to your children, and it tells you exactly what to do. It tells you the question to ask, and then it says like, have the children observe the photo included in this lesson, and when they do it, you can check it off. I love the little check boxes. The type A in me loves the check boxes. So it has all of that, and this is the same thing. You read, you look at pictures, and like I said, I use this on my iPad, but you can totally print it out. So if I was doing lesson 1, I would read this to my kiddo. We stop and we talk about it, and then it also has activity breaks that says, hey, you've done a little bit of reading, stop and do this for a minute, and it'll tell you what you can do. And I've noticed these are the same things. There's, hey, read this and then go look at this, or read this and go do this experiment. So they both kind of include that. They do have vocabulary in Gather Round. You'll notice by the dark, bold words, there's just not any cards included, but you can always point out any words. Here you're actually going to stop and you're going to talk about the vocabulary word, and you're going to ask questions. So this is just showing you how to look through, like a look through of the lesson. So this is Gather Round Homeschool. Now I did not print, there were some beautiful pictures for the Good and the Beautiful in lesson 1. Beautiful pictures. But as I was printing this, my ink decided to run out, and I'm really on a time crunch to get this video up today while it's actually beautiful and I have good light. So the Good and the Beautiful actually has gorgeous pictures too. So don't think that just because I'm not showing you the pictures from the unit, they have beautiful pictures in them as well, and they'll direct your kiddos to go and look at these beautiful pictures. So there are gorgeous pictures in here of these planets and of the things they're talking about. They're just, I don't have them printed off right now. And so here again is like the story of the telescope, the history of astronomy. Here's your vocabulary words. And then here, it's like, hey, go to your science journal, then do this planet cards. Then you're talking about another vocabulary word, science journal, Milky Way, and then it has an activity. So the activities are right here. You're doing Milky Way facts, and then it's quiet up here, and then it's dark up there. So through both of them, there are times that you stop and do an activity, so it's not just reading the entire time. And then at the end of Gather Round, you're going to have the assignment where you hand your kids their notebook that they're using. There's an extension activity. If you want to take that learning just a little bit further than what is provided in the workbooks, there's something you can do. And then she lists all of her sources, and if you use it on your computer or iPad, they're clickable links that you can go right to that website. So I thought that was really neat. So what I want to show you is what their notebook looks like for lesson 1. So there isn't a notebook for the Good and the Beautiful. You're working out of a science journal, or you're looking at pictures, or you're doing some type of activity. There is no notebook that you're going to hand to your kiddos. This one actually does have a notebook. So this is my son's, and because he was not feeling the writing thing that day, he narrated and I wrote down what he said. So they normally, all of her unit studies and all of her lessons, they start with a notebooking page, and that differs from lesson to lesson, what is asked of them. So after I read the teacher's guide for lesson 1, he would work on this notebook page as I was reading or after I'm reading. This is his social studies for that day. It was all about economics. We talked about an economy, and then we worked on these 3 questions. Here's the copy work. We don't always do the copy work because he's just not a fan of it, and we had looked at the copy work and he knew most of the words, and we talked about her 2 suggestions and he wrote those. So there's your spelling and your copy work. This day happened to have some geography. That's not every day. You do not hit every subject every day. That's something to note, but you do hit it within the week. So we did this map work, and then as you can tell, he doesn't enjoy art either, but there is art included, and this is where we learned all about Vincent van Gogh and the Starry Night. And I know the Good and the Beautiful is really big on picture studies, so you do see that in their units, just like you do in Gather Round. So we learned about Vincent van Gogh and Starry Night, and then he recreated it, and you don't have to recreate it on this page. If your kiddos are painters or like to create in other ways, they can certainly do that. So that's what that one lesson looks like from the Good and the Beautiful. From Gather Round Homeschool. So I wanted to show you this. This is your Milky Way fact sheet, and it came with the other papers. You could glue the facts in your notebook. And now we're going to talk about lesson 2. So lesson 2 in Gather Round was galaxies and solar systems, and what you do, just like every day, you get out your teacher's guide. It tells you exactly what you're learning for that day. So you're going to hit science, science and history, language arts, science, and art. So you might not hit geography that day, but that's totally okay. So here's your lesson script. This is everything you're going to read. Pictures with labels. There's musical memory. Here's a little song. More reading, more pictures. This is the story of how the Milky Way got its name. Here's an activity break. An assignment. So, hey, it's time to start working in your notebooks. And here's her sources. So that's what lesson 2 looks like for Gather Round Homeschool. And then here's lesson 2 for the Good and the Beautiful. So it tells you what they're going to learn about, how to get prepared, and all you're going to need for that day. It has your opening activity, so you're going to start with an activity, and then it tells you exactly what to read, when to pause for answers, what to ask your kiddos. It talks about how stars are formed, the brightness of stars, and here's your picture activity. You observe the photo, and then as your kiddos are looking at the photo, it tells you exactly what you're going to read. So this is what you will read to your kiddos as they're looking at the picture. And the pictures, like I said, are beautiful. There's beautiful pictures in both of them. Then you have a video activity. So their videos are included inside the lesson. They're not as suggestions at the front like they are in Gather Round. They are right here. Sometimes in Gather Round, she'll have like, hey, you may want to go check this out. But normally they're at the front. Occasionally they're built in. Here they are built into the lesson itself. So you have your video activity. You have another picture activity here. And then another picture activity they're going to look at and you're going to read to them. And then it has an older children lesson extension. So if you've got those 5th, 6th, or 7th graders that you want to push a little harder or they need more work for you to feel like they're really, they're hitting everything they need to, there's an extension activity for them. Keep in mind, this notebook that you're looking at for Gather Round Homeschool right here is upper elementary. So the stuff that my child's doing, he's a 5th grader. So this is really recommended for like a 5th and 6th grade, and then she has a middle school version and a high school version, and they're going to look very different. So this is what he would do in lesson 2. So as we're reading, he's going to fill in this notebooking page, and like I said, it's always a notebooking page, but they look different and they ask different things. Then we learned about Galileo, which is also hit in the Good and the Beautiful science unit as well. So we read about him and answered questions. This is his grammar, and in this one, he did not recopy it, but what we worked on was editing. A good way for kiddos to learn editing is to edit someone else's work so they don't feel the criticism of their work. So it'll tell you there's 5 capitalization errors and 2 verb tense errors, and so you go through and you find them, and that's how you get your grammar in. Then we did ordering our solar system, which is something you also do in the Good and the Beautiful. You just do it with picture cards of the planets. Here you're writing them down. So you're kind of doing the same thing. And then on this one, we learned how to draw a sphere, and he actually did this on another sheet of paper, so our artwork was included for that day. So what I would recommend you doing, I know this is just 2 lessons, and that's really not enough to show you how great they both are. Like I said, we have done both of these. I did the space unit from the Good and the Beautiful last year, and then I chose the space unit study from Gather Round Homeschool this year. And I love both of them for what they're for. Again, like I said, they're not comparing apples to apples. The space from the Good and the Beautiful is simply a science unit. Gather Round Homeschool, you're getting all of your subjects. What I definitely recommend is going to both of the websites, checking them out, seeing what samples they have. I know for a fact that Gather Round Homeschool has samples so that you can see what the unit looks like, what the teacher's guide looks like, and what the different levels look like. So if you're teaching a pre-K-er and a middle schooler, you can go and get a sample emailed to you so you can see what their notebook's going to look like. You can try a lesson from one of the units. I think North American Birds actually has an entire week's worth of lessons. that you can try. So just go to the Gather Round website and sign up for emails, and she can send you a sample of those units that you want to check out. And you can get a sample of the space unit, and it shows one lesson but all the levels. So you can see what your early elementary student may be doing and what your high schooler may be doing, because the notebooks look very different and the complexity in the notebooks varies based on the level. So I hope this was helpful. If you still have any questions about either one of these units or any comments of where you've used them and what your opinions are on them, please share them down below. I would love to hear what you think about them. Like I said, I enjoyed both of them. So I want to thank Colleen for suggesting this video because it was fun to kind of compare the two and tell what I like about both of them. Make sure you like and subscribe and share with anyone else that you think this might help out. Thanks for watching.